also ask that you do not live stream on any social media platform during the competition. All right, competitors, looks like 10 pins on the deck. Arrows are up. Bowling fans, how about a great send-off? All right, thank you. Good luck.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to BowlTV.com for round two coverage of the 2019 USBC Senior Masters. We are hanging out at the Samstown Hotel and Gambling Hall in Las Vegas, Nevada. My name is Aaron Smith with USBC Communications, and we are here for 15 games today over the course of 3 rounds. Second round of competition here. A total of 3 qualifying rounds before we get to the double elimination match play bracket synonymous with this event. So we will go over day 1. It's a tough break there for Jim Gordon, stuff in the 9 pin, as well as look at what to expect throughout the rest of the week here. But for right now, let's meet our competitors here. These bowlers are on B squad, so they bowled on the burn yesterday. We have basically a fresh burn and double burn that each of these competitors will have the opportunity to compete on. So they got the pattern a little beat up yesterday, but now they get it in its most pristine condition. Got 15 minutes of warm-up prior to the start of competition, and now into their 5-game block. Our condition this week, 40 feet in length, 31.185 mils is the volume using the Kegel ice oil. Kegel is the official lane maintenance provider of USBC short duration events. I'd like to thank them for their continued support, along with our gold industry partners, Brunswick, Columbia 300, Ebonite, Hammer, Rotogrip, and Storm. Kegel also part of that great group of companies. But before we get too far into yesterday, let's focus on today and meet our competitors here on our featured lanes, 19 through 22 at this 56 lane venue. A few of these folks we have seen already this week. Some we're getting to see for the first time. Paul Malin's up on lane 20. Jim Gordon, as we saw, left that just so rough 9-pin right there in the second frame. He's going to be stepping up on lane 19. They're joined by Jim Cote and Mike Noggle. To kick things off over on 21 and 22. We saw Chris Leota and Gary Morgan yesterday. I'm going to get to see them again today. This time on 21 and 22, they're joined by Tony Johnson and Ron Moore. He was looking for some redemption this week after a arguably rough finish to the Super Senior Classic, which also took place right here at Samstown. And Ron had himself a nice day yesterday, got to 147 over par. Gary Morgan not too far off that pace, 1140 for his first 5, so 140 over. But in general, from round 1, we saw a pretty high scoring pace. This pattern held up pretty well for only being oiled, or having lanes only oiled one time over the course of the day, for 3 squads, 15 games, and 3 15-minute warm-up periods. But on top of the leaderboard after day 1, former Team USA member Steve Smith from San Diego fired games of 235, 256, 202, 279, and 266 for a 1238 5-game total. That is equivalent to a 247.6 average, so that's a whole bunch of striking right there. Sitting in second, John Dudek from Orland Park, Illinois at plus 212, so Steve at 238 over, Dudek at plus 212. Pete Thomas of Oklahoma City plus 204 in third place. Those were our only 3 competitors to eclipse the plus 200 mark in round number 1. And when we talk about plus and minuses in the sport of bowling, that means pins over 200. So essentially, as our tournament director Damon Sirocco explains to the fans before the start of every block, to understand the plus-minus system. First and foremost, plus is good, minus is less than favorable. But 200 is considered an even game, a par game, if you will, if you think about it in golf terms as well. So if a player shoots 220 in game 1, they would be plus 20. If they shot 185, they'd be minus 15. And essentially, we continue to tally up these totals, so it's a little bit easier to kind of tell where someone is after, you know, when we get into this event, we'll get 15 games of qualifying in. It's a little bit easier to say someone's plus 225 instead of saying they've knocked over 3,225 pins, to kind of compare things. So that's why we go with that route. A little bit easier for everyone, but Steve Smith plus 238, John Dudak plus 212, Pete Thomas plus 204, Stoney Baker from Canton, Georgia plus 187, Joe Kayak from Canada plus 184, Gary Faulkner, Norfolk, Virginia plus 183, John Austin, better known as Corbett Austin from North Ogden, Utah plus 179. In 7th, Blaine Wenninger, Clackamas, Oregon plus 177. Australia's James Harvey at plus 176, and Doug Kempt of Arcadia, California at plus 173. Those are your top 10 competitors after round number 1. And we can see a pretty decent squad disparity there. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players on B, 3 on A, 2 on C, but we have a whole bunch of C's right after that, a few more A's, and then a little bit of a drop off in the B's. So it seems like squad equity was pretty even. And like we said, the pattern didn't get too beat up over the course of those 15 games from what we saw. We have David Waswo in the booth as well. He bowled on B squad yesterday, so he is on the lanes today. We'll see him during game 4. And from his vantage point of bowling on the burn and kind of seeing where folks were getting to from there, he didn't think it got too crazy. Obviously, you still got to go out there and make the best shots possible and put yourself in position to create a little room each way on the lanes. But we'll see if that trend continues today. Obviously, with the fresh squad, they're going to play, or essentially A squad, B squad, C squad is going to play the fresh differently. We would think, maybe, or maybe not. The one thing that has looked consistent for us here is Ron says thank you after that one, getting the hit for his first double of the day. Is that some of the left-handers still migrating a little bit farther right with their feet, kind of creating a little shape, throwing it away from the pocket. The righty is still pretty direct for the most part. So it looks like kind of the same trends that we saw yesterday so far, but we'll see if it continues throughout the course of competition. Taking a look a little bit farther down the standings. Some important points to note. Our defending champion, Chris Warren, is tied for 50th place at plus 94. So for Chris, he is guaranteed a spot in the double elimination bracket, which takes 64 players into that portion of the event. So we go from 300, and Tony gets 2 hits on the 10 there to make sure it definitely falls over. But Warren is guaranteed one of those 64 spots as the defending champion. However, he can improve his seeding through qualifying. So if Chris ended up staying in 50th, that's where he would fall into the bracket. But if he had a few rough days and fell outside the top 64, let's say he finished 75th after 15 games, he would be awarded the 64th spot. But right now the cut is plus 85, which is a 217 average. So that's Henry Dawson of Elma, Washington. Also competed at the Super Senior Classic. He's holding down the 64th spot, but obviously with 10 games left to go, that number is going to do all sorts of things. We do have live scoring available for you, along with 3 total channels to watch. The channels you can find below the video. So we have we're also showing lanes 15 through 18 and lanes 23 through 26. The featured pair is the only one with the commentary, however, so we're unable to get it to necessarily go across all the platforms at the moment. So it would also be weird because we'd be talking about 19 through 22 and you'd be watching 15 through 18, so it wouldn't relate necessarily. So live scoring, results, the roster, lane pairings, oil pattern, and more can be found at bowl.com/seniormasters, or if you are in the chat room, you see a few of those panels to the top. You can click on the third one over for tournament information. You click on that, that'll take you to the page as well. The live scoring is going to be very helpful for us. We're going to keep an eye the best we can across the house. So if players are making a run at 300 or 800 or cool things of that nature, we may skip away from the booth for a little bit so we can check everything out. Scrolling through right now to see there's definitely some strong starts out there. Doug Kempt, who we saw yesterday, have a pretty strong start, off to his striking ways once again, front five. Nice shot there from Mike. 3 out of the first 5 strikes for him. Here's Moore looking for 4 in a row. As you can see, he's trying to create a little bit of shape off the end of the pattern here. Can't dig the 10 out though in frame number 7. Steve Smith, our opening round leader, way down on 51-52 to start. He did mention some differences he noticed from the high end to the low end of the house, which is not uncommon. And definitely something I'm sure competitors have kept notes of, as Samstown has become a fairly regular stop here for these back-to-back senior and super senior events. We could potentially even catch it on our crowd mic at the moment. Ron Moore came back to talk to Jim Callahan, one of his ball reps, and talked about the differences from lane to lane just here on 21 and 22. But Ron, being from the Las Vegas area, has become quite familiar with Samstown. So also the Super Senior Classic champion in 2017. Torrey Torgerson has 8 out of 9 strikes, can shoot .279 to kick things off today. Torgerson is going to be in the 270s. Keeping an eye here on live scoring, so that's a excellent start for a young man who still can't believe is 50. Gary Morgan from Honolulu. Looking for 7 in a row here. That one skates through the break point just enough to come in a little too light. Leaves the 3-pin. Taking a look at live scoring, looks like we are pretty quiet here on players with strings of strikes, at least to start the game. So however, definitely some big games out there. So we will be, appears like we will be seeing Torre in the next game after 270 to start. He just walked down here and placed his coffee in this general area. So based off of that, I would imagine we'll be seeing him. Good run there by Mike at the 210. Thought he was going to give it just enough kick there. Tony Johnson putting together a nice game here. Runs into trouble in the 9th. It tripped a 9-pin last time on 21. You could see from his body motion afterwards, he was hoping for a little bit of help. Pays the big time price here with the 4-6. Gary Morgan mixes them up. He can still shoot 269. Gonna be a 216 finish. Clean game for Ron Moore. It's gonna get him to 163 over par. Tony Johnson gonna step up and still get to 235 this game. Chris Leota gonna finish with 169. Gary Morgan from the left side can connect for 3 to get to 269. In the foundation frame over on 1920. Jim's going to take care of that always pesky 478. Gary unable to get that first hit in the 10th. It's going to drop his max score down into the 240s. And our friends here on Bowl TV, remember, Earl's back for a second season. Stay tuned for more information as we continue Earl's journey to 900 right here on Bowl TV. Bowling lives here. Not going to lie, Earl's had a rough few weeks to start the season. But we've all been there before. Long summer, you know, a little too much golf maybe. Not enough time in the center. You gotta get loose, gotta get acclimated. We determined we're gonna use a new bowling ball next time we shoe up with Earl. So, and as an early spoiler, we may be finding a celebrity or two to join us as well for the excitement. So be on the lookout for that. We'll have a promo when the time is right. Of course, you can find the archives of Earl's Journey to 900, a few different spots here on the website, and archived events on the backstage page, on the lab page. It's really a great learning tool all around. 249 finish for Gary Morgan, 223 for Tony Johnson, 216 Ron Moore, Chris Leota, 169. Scoring pace a little bit lower on 19 and 20. Jim Cote can get to 167. Jim Gordon is looking at a 6-7. Jim's going to get to 168. Paul stepping up on 20. He's getting caught by a few of those red circles up on the scoreboard that we don't like to see. He's going to catch a break there. See if he can turn into one more, get into the 170s. He's going to be plus after this game, so always a good thing. But as we've seen, the scoring pace a little bit higher this week. Definitely want to see the games with two starting with them a little bit more often than one. As Cote gets to 165, he's now minus 95. Jim Gordon's at minus 6. Mike Noggle will have the opportunity to throw all three in the 10th. Shoot an even 200. Stay at plus 90. Paul's going to finish with 166. He's now at plus 8 after 6 games. No problem on the 10 pin there for Mike. Chance to shoot 180. That would get him to plus 70. Looks like we got a few competitors ready to go for our next game here on our featured pairs. So one final fill ball from Mike before we press the button to make it game number 2. He's going to finish with a 177. So one of those interesting moments for competitors maybe heading to 19 and 20. Taking a look at the scores up there. May not be too excited. That's why we bowl them. All right, folks, game 2 is going to be starting up momentarily, so we're going to make sure all of our channels are good to go for that. So everyone hang tight as we have round 2 action underway. B squad is getting in games 6 through 10. Qualifying here at the 2019 USBC Senior Queens. We do have 2 other squads ongoing. C squad will be on the lanes at 3 p.m. Eastern, which will be noon local time here. And then A squad will hit the double burn at 7 p.m. Eastern for local time here in Las Vegas. John Dudek with the washout conversion. He was in second place in the standings heading into round number 2. He's joined by Tore Torgersen on 19 and 20. Tore from Norway. Had a fairly impressive career across the world. Just turned 50 this year, has won tournaments in 11 different countries. He's named the World Amateur Bowler of the Year in 2000, a 7-time Norwegian Bowler of the Year. Also a Cubica AMF World Cup champion. Over on 21 and 22. As Mitch Vernon on 21 converting the spare. James Eek is up on 22. Gary Hadley will be making his way. To 21. And Todd Kell will be there a 4th for Todd. A 5th place finish this season at the PBA 50 Mooresville Open. That was back at the end of April. Tell there very quickly Tore was not going to be happy with that one, and 6-9-10 the result of that. We've got several folks who have dropped out of the tournament since we started with our 300. It was actually 300 plus competitors signed up, but we do have a few pairs now with vacants or absent bowlers, and so for Tore and John, they are going to be bowling very quick here in game number 2. For those of you interested, pretty stellar duo on 17 and 18 at the moment, Johnny Petraglia and Pete Weber, available on one of our other channels. Senior Masters 15 through 18, the place to be for that. See those two legends of the game do their thing. John Dudek is a PBA 50 regional winner. And for John, it's been the tale of 2 tournaments so far here at Samstown. He did bowl in the Super Senior Classic earlier in the week here at Samstown, and frankly wasn't the best 12 games for John. Finished tied for 125th, averaging 193 out here for that event. So as you can see, that's why we keep shoeing up and lacing up. We learn from those experiences, come back stronger for the next one. So John was able to take a couple of days and get refocused for the Senior Masters. And as we can see, after his performance in day number 1, quickly pushed that performance earlier in the week to the side for John. He had games of 249, 200, 279, 226, and 258. On his way to averaging better than 242 for his 5 games on the burn. It's in the 190s in game number 1. Still looking for that first strike here on 19 and 20. Torrey connects for the first time on lane 19 and collects his first double. After round number 1, Torgerson was at plus 79. So as we mentioned, watching in live scoring, he struck a bit. Not gonna lie. Finished with a 278. To jump all the way to plus 157 and put himself well within the number. As we all know, those numbers can quickly go back and forth on what the cut, or being in the cut and falling out. And it appears we do have scores updated through our first game today. So those, once again, bowl.com/Senior Masters. And Blaine Wenninger, Clackamas, Oregon, returns to the top of the standings. He was our leader heading into the final game of B Squad yesterday. Shot 263, the ever popular 263 in the opener to get to 240 over. He's now 5 pins ahead of Steve Smith, our overall leader after round number 1 at 14:35. Steve 197 in the opener. Dudak shot 196 to drop to plus 208. Doug Kemp 234 to get to plus 207. Gary Morgan on our featured pair, as we mentioned, from Honolulu, doing things right. Now plus 189. James Harvey plus 187. Gerald Johnson, who got off to a fantastic start yesterday. We're slowing down a little bit in games 4 and 5. 237 in the opener. He's now at plus 178. John Congro plus 169. Carl West plus 164. Ron Moore plus 163. Some of the big scores overall in B Squad here through 1. Just got a report of a front 7 over on 45 and 46, so we will take a quick moment to go through the live scoring. Thought we were going to have the fast pair here in 19 and 20. Just two players, but got to report that Ryan Schaefer has struck a little bit to get going here bright and early on a Wednesday morning. Just got to report back, though, that Schaefer unable to get the 10-pin out on his delivery in frame number 8. What was that? RAF plus 153, so doing what he needs to do to be well in the number here in the early going. Ball change there for Dudek. Connects for his first strike. Oh, Todd getting the hit in frame number 5. Feel like some of the guys who are having a pretty good day so far that we've gotten to see are maybe just a touch left of where we kind of saw some guys to start yesterday. So felt like players were a little more on top of first arrow yesterday and trying to play them pretty direct, play them pretty nice. As we can see with Torgerson, who's having another nice game here. He's going a little bit left to right, more around the track area. Seems like Dudek just has to be really on top of it right now to get the to get a good look off of first arrow. Schaefer was able to spare at 10 pin, so he can shoot 279 this game. Schaefer had 235 in the opener, so that's always a good sign. You're striking on the fresh. It's always nice to get some pins on the burn. And even the double burn as well, but looking ahead to the second half of this event as So many players will note that the match play portion mostly contested on the fresh, or when you even when you do hit the burn, it's not necessarily has seen a ton of traffic. Sometimes you just got to find a way into that top 64, and match play will find a way to just happen to match up for you. And we saw that at the USBC Queens, as Malaysia's Sinli Jain barely made the top 64. I believe she was in 57th or so, but proved that that's just a number. As long as it's within the top 64, then she just proceeded to average 248, I believe, in match play over the course of her run to the number 2 seed overall in an eventual runner-up finish. The 2019 event, which was just a couple of weeks ago in Wichita, Kansas. And it's fun to watch Torgerson bowl. He's just one of those guys who's just so effortless up there. Can do a whole bunch, but doesn't look like he's using any energy at all, which is pretty nifty for starters. And once again, he appears to be, or was a gentleman we were very surprised to see who was actually on the roster for being age eligible for this event. It's going to be in the 2 teens though, 219 with the spare conversion. Right around plus 100 for the day so far through his first 2 games. Got another front 7 out there, high into the house. Chuck Tompkins, 53 and 54. The front 7. 19 and 20 finished up very quickly with John Dudek and Torrey Torgerson being the only two competitors on that pair. And we still got the 10th frame to go here on 21 and 22 in game 2. But the reason we turned the sound off for a quick second was we were welcoming and catching up a now familiar name in the Bull TV land here at Sam's Town. Sipping on his coffee drink, which some folks still may not believe, but it's Daniel Farish returning.
Glad to be back. Very glad to be back.
Well, welcome back. I'm glad you could stop by for a little bit before your shift at your other job.
My other bowling tournament.
To join us here for some Senior Masters qualifying. We are watching B Squad hit the fresh for the first time after having a fairly productive day on the burn yesterday. A lot of big scores out there. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, took a 217 average at the moment to be in the top 64. So definitely got to take advantage.
Oh, when you said that to me, I thought you meant it was plus 217.
No, that would be ridiculous, because that would mean 60 people are averaging 240. 217 average, which is still,
for 64, that's still quite hefty.
yes, sir.
You know, a couple guys that I'm friends with on social media were posting their recap sheets from yesterday, and the first one I saw was, I think, Gary Faulkner at plus 186. And I was like, holy moly, that's a big number. And then somebody else, Blaine Winninger, who is, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, he ran a tournament series out in the Pacific Northwest, up in the Oregon, Washington area, and he put up like 180, 190 over. I'm like, man, these guys are lighting it up.
Wow, you allow such great segues by just bringing up two random people. Because Blaine Winninger is currently leading after one game in B Squad at plus 240. And for Mr. Faulkner, he was second on A Squad on the fresh. So two guys who are been in the top 10 entering into today's competition. So you're friends with good people.
Yeah, I was kind of following scores just based on my contacts on social media, but I didn't know who was on what squad. You know, I didn't know if they came off the burn or double burn, who was lighting them up, so I didn't know all the details of it. I just knew that those names were up top.
Yeah, Blaine was on this squad, as we mentioned, on the burn yesterday. Shot 290 in game 4 to take the lead, but slowed down in the finale, shooting just 190, while Steve Smith went 279, 266 to wrap up his block to get to 238 over. Mitch Vernon 215. James Eek at 212. Gary's having some struggles this game. Gonna pick up the spare though. Get to 129 for Todd. Can get to 181. That should leave him at plus 86.
So this is B Squad in front of us then?
This is B Squad.
If these guys were on the burn yesterday, okay.
On the burn yesterday, yep. So they are competing in the traditional ABC, BCA, CAB. So you got Cabot on the last day.
Like it.
It's the only way I remember it. First day and last day, those are easy. I always have to think about day 2, though. Of all things to slow you down. Day 2 of qualifying.
You were saying that the double burn really didn't break down into what you would expect a double burn to be, and that kind of falls in line with what we saw in the Super Senior last week. The burn squad really didn't play like a burn squad, and the players even mirrored that thought. They said it wasn't as dry as you might expect a burn pattern to be.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, obviously, with 31 mils out there for the volume, that's going to be pretty soupy out there, if you will. So obviously the pattern was put together knowing it had to withstand 45 minutes of warm-up over 3 squads and 15 games, and obviously you don't want to have it get to a point to where it's just a a contest of who can chuck the ball the hardest and
Well,
things of that nature.
I don't know how much of that we would see with the demographic of the players out here. Now, granted, this is younger than what we saw last week, on average, but and I think part of it, like you said, goes to the number of units out there. I mean, 31's a lot these days. You don't see that typically. You see in most tournaments, whether it's a senior tournament or a regular tournament or a women's tournament, doesn't matter. Youth tournament, you see kind of between 25 and a half and like 28, 29. Anything over 30 is quite a bit these days, although I am of the belief that with every bowling ball that comes out being new and improved and hooking more than the previous version of said ball, you could probably go a little higher in volume on both house patterns and tournament patterns. Seems like tournament patterns have fallen behind, or oil patterns have fallen behind the technology of the bowling balls these days. We're still using the same volume of oil that we used 10 years ago. Now the oils are different. We got the fire, the ice, you've got Brunswick's oil, you've got all kinds of different syntheses out there of oil. But I think we could bump the volume up a little more across the board, and it would help counteract what these bowling balls do to these patterns sometimes.
That was a syntheses, folks, at 9:09 a.m.
I don't know what I dropped last week. I said something last week.
You had another big word there in the early morning. You're just showing off with all these fancy words that I don't know. Syntheses.
You pumped me full of coffee. And
well, this is the key. This has been the common denominator from these two moments. So it looks like Game 3 is going to be up and running fairly quickly and probably be going pretty quick because
oh yeah,
because we only have 5 bowlers here. So let's see, Michael Austin, Shane Horseman, and who is our TM? Let's see. Let's check real quick.
See, just last week when I got used to the initials for the players' names on each pairs, as they got whittled down to fewer and fewer, now we've got another full tournament size. And
this we do.
Initials I don't know.
And Tim Mezzarulli will be our 3 on 19 and 20, and then Jack Wolford and Rob Rice on 21-22, starting Game 3.
So where were these guys playing the pattern at yesterday?
Yesterday really didn't get too crazy until maybe a little bit into the double burn, and when I say crazy, it wasn't even that crazy. We still saw a lot of guys playing out, not like first arrow out, but around the track, fairly direct angles towards the end of the burn pattern. Even to start the double burn, really didn't see too many people get in, into left a third arrow until kind of a little bit deeper into the block. Didn't mean they didn't get tricky out there, but you just didn't see the guys who wanted to hook it. We caught Brian Kretzer during the double burn, and he was, left a fourth arrow, but Brian Kretzer can do that because he's Brian Kretzer.
Yeah.
But guys are pretty tame, and like you said, and I think we talked about it a little bit last week or this week or whenever weeks start and begin. With the Super Senior Classic is kind of when you see events with multiple squads, and especially with fresh burn, double burn, that the particular squads always seem to play a pattern a certain way, where a squad is usually the kindest to the fresh, and then it seems like players seem to start a little bit further left from squad to squad. but today was still fairly direct. We see a little more shape being created from the right-handers. On the left side, though, we've seen players starting farther to the right than we're typically, I want to say, used to seeing. But with the asymmetry of the pattern, I think that's kind of pushing them to get into that part of the lane. So,
And I think part of that, not just the, and I haven't looked at the pattern yet, but I think that's also the volume. Is the higher the volume, the less able you're going to be to play further out on the lane. So you're going to want to try and keep the ball a little closer to the head pin when you've got a volume that's that high. I'm still, even into game 3, I'm seeing a lot of surface out on those ball racks.
it was funny. Jim Callahan, good friend of us here at Bull TV, and he's running around this week, and he elected to drop some Eberlon pads on the feature table yesterday, and so I just asked him, like, what you got there? And this was during B Squad. He's like 500 and 1,000. So at least from that aspect, didn't see the need to be kind of going with those higher grit pads, if you will, using the stuff getting dusty. But yeah, it wasn't a thing where, you know, you really didn't even see like players trying to ball down to kind of stay in that area. You still saw the stronger balls with the bigger cores being used, playing out to the right. It definitely was different than what we're typically used to seeing or thinking about.
Like a typical transition that a bowler makes.
But yeah, the guys were able to stay pretty far right throughout the course of it. You can see one pair to our left, Steve Smith, our day one leader, now up on 17 and 18. Former Team USA member, 2011 to 2013, bowling his second Senior Masters.
Roll it? Nope.
We've seen a few weird hits on 21 and 22 like we did.
I was about to ask, is 22 giving you any shenanigans like we saw last week?
It hasn't been as often.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean it's. I think the pattern probably plays a little bit into that too. We had even though the pattern length was the same for the Super Senior Classic, the volume was much different, and players were able to definitely create more shape on that pattern. So I think that just the angle of entry into the pocket is different this week. So I think that's why they've kind of been fewer and farther between. But there's still one or two, though, just for good measure.
We got to keep them honest, right?
Oh, of course.
We see over on 17 and 18, Mark Scroggins. I got a chance to speak with his brother, Mike, who was bowling the Open Championships. I want to say it was Sunday. And I walked down. I said, "Oh, Mike, you in town for the Senior Masters?" He said, "Nope." He said, "Just in town to bowl the Open Championships." He said, "I couldn't get off time from work to bowl the Senior Masters, so I'm just bowling the OC." He goes, "My brother's going to be bowling," but hated to hear that. I've always been a fan of Mike Scroggins. You know, plays the lane straighter, kind of like I've always done. And so I looked at him, even though he was a lefty, I looked at him and said, okay, here's somebody who throws the ball straight that has success. I mean, two major titles, 8-time PBA titleist, 42 career PBA 300 games. He's almost got as many PBA 300 games as I have regular 300 games.
Now you guys are both show-offs. That's all I'm hearing right
Hey,
now.
house shots are easy, man. House shots are easy.
But definitely one of the cool aspects of this event, and we had David Waswo from the Bowler Show join us in the booth for a little bit of C Squad yesterday after he competed on B Squad. But we were talking about that. We had, and I've been very fortunate with this job to get to come to events like this and other events to where we've gotten to see the Pete Webbers, the Walter Rays, the Norm Dukes of the world out here compete, interview them. But one of the guys who was bowling C Squad yesterday, who I never had the opportunity to see in person, who's back out competing, is Steve Hoskins.
Steve Hoskins, yep.
And he was here on 21 and 22, and it was kind of like a fanning out moment. Even though my game resembles nothing of his, even though I enjoyed watching him so much growing up.
Oh, Jack Wofford.
I've been there before, Jack. Been there before. But yeah, it was still fun to just like
watch.
Holy cow, that's Steve Hoskins right
there.
Like he was standing right there.
So he'll be C Squad, so he's up. He'll be up next then.
Next squad, yep.
Okay, so I'm going to miss because I'm going to leave it after the afternoon squad because I got to be back at the OC at 4 local time, 7 back on the East Coast. So I'll miss the A Squad, but yeah, I don't know that I've seen him in person either.
Well, you will because is bowling the next squad.
Good deal.
Tomorrow is Cab. Tomorrow
Tomorrow's Cab.
he's on the early squad. Today he's middle because they were double burn yesterday. So it's your lucky day.
So how would you pronounce today? Baka?
Bika.
Bika.
I actually don't know. BCA.
We don't have enough vowels in that. Last week we had too many vowels in some names. Now we don't have enough vowels.
This is true. We need to throw we could throw an A in there somewhere. Okay, Sam Baca. There, Jack comes back with the mixer, or excuse me, the high hit.
The high hit, yeah.
The mixer didn't carry last time. 10 with the spare. We were cruising right along here in game 3 of 5 of our opening block of the day. Squads again going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon local time here in Las Vegas, and 7 p.m. Eastern for Pacific for our final 2 rounds of the day.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I was just looking at some of the standings. I'm glad to see some names up in the cut that we saw last week. Fran Leslie, Ron Moore, Warren Nelson. Glad to see Ron Moore kind of bounce back from what can be only categorized as a frustrating finish to the Super Senior a couple days ago.
That's pretty much the only word that can define it, because that was one of those things where it's not very often we see Ron Moore have those type of struggles.
Yeah.
As great of a competitor as he's been for so long.
Up the hill. Oh, no. Stay on top of the hill.
That, yes, a very uncharacteristic finish to the Super Senior Classic, but Ron had himself a nice day. We got to see him during game 1 today as well, so he was off to a strong start, had a nice clean 216 to get things going, and is moving along from there. So we have some scores updated on site. Let's see if we got we do? All right.
We do.
Fantastic. Here's a Blaine Wenninger continuing to lead, plus 258. Gary Morgan, we had him during game number 1. Once again, that good clean living in Honolulu, plus 221. Sitting in second place overall, John Congro. He's at 505 after 2. Now plus 217. Some struggles for Steve Smith, 197, 181. Plus 216, Ryan Schaefer moving on up, plus 196. Doug Kemp plus 1 Doug Kempt, and not Kent, just to, since Doug Kent is in the field, plus 193. Ron Moore, pair of 216s, he's at plus 179. Torrey Torgerson, plus 176. We saw him last game along with John Dudek, plus 175. John's having some struggles here on the fresh after finishing yesterday in the second place overall. So Congro, 105 over so far. Let's see if we got anyone else. Ed Silva, 493. He's now at plus 142, excuse me. Do we have anyone else doing crazy things here?
Let's see, just outside the cut, our day one leader from the Super Senior, Kevin Croucher, 226.205 so far this morning.
Yeah, appears Congro, the big block so far. Plus 105, 257, 248. Once again, now at 217. In the over department. You mentioned Croucher, he started off with 5 in a row this game on 41-42. And a nice shot from Jack. 3 in a row after back-to-back splits. Tough break there for Tim. Did everything he wanted to do on a washout except have the head pin actually connect. So one of those frustrating moments.
If I'm ever talking to somebody recapping a game that I had, whether it was league or tournament, and I have a situation like that where I wrap the head pin around the 10, I'll tell them I made the washout, the pin didn't. I did my job.
There you go.
It's not
I
my
like
fault.
that.
It's not
I
my
like
fault
that,
the pins
Daniel.
didn't answer, didn't respond.
Those pesky pins. That was one of the weird hits we caught yesterday. Was actually to start C squad. It was pretty cool. We had Parker Bone and Doug Kent on 19 and 20, and Amleto on 21 and 22. And Amleto actually was having some struggles, and he washed out on 22. And in the spare attempt, he caught one of those weird hits that we've been seeing on 22, where it seemed like that pin kicked off of that way too. Like the angle just didn't match up to how it kicked off.
Right.
And went in front of the 10 pretty.
Oh, the head pin kicked off the wall and came back in front of it.
In front of it pretty violently, and it was one of those things where even Amleto just kind of gave it the look afterwards, like that didn't seem right at all. And that's because it wasn't.
Yeah, if you've been bowling for a long time, there's some things that don't look natural, and you notice it as soon as it happens. I can envision that happening in my head, even though I didn't see it, and I can imagine his reaction. Just, what in the world?
Blaine Wenninger off to another strong start here. Spare in the first, followed by a 5-bagger over on 27 and 28.
And then he split the 7th. I just happened to look down and see him.
Ah.
Oh, almost. Shane Horseman almost with the 210 conversion. Ball hooked right by the 10.
That would be a fun stat for players to start keeping.
What's that?
Almost split conversions.
Oh, they'd have a ton because they'd tell you they almost made every one of them. Get left.
I just have a feeling that today is not going to be as nice by the time we get to the end of the day. I could be 100% wrong, but it just seems like we got a few more players getting left early.
Well, that's, we kind of hit on that a little bit earlier, and then all last week you talked about it, that these players, if, we saw it with Kevin Croucher. He led day one of the Super Senior playing, on the burn, and then the next day, he, along with a lot of other players in the field, tried to get the third arrow as quick as they could. because they want to get into that sweet spot where they had success the day before. So, you talked about the morning squad on day one is nicer to the lanes than any other morning squad because all those guys from before, from the burn and double burn, are trying to get to that spot as quick as possible.
Speaking of Croucher, front seven over on 41 and 42. He's still striking along with Keith Lesko here on 23 and 24. So we'll keep an eye on Mr. Croucher.
Oh, Jack Walford.
There you go, Jack.
Living the good life.
Hey, take it when you can get it.
Rob Rice was plus a decent amount coming into this game, but struggling. 3 opens and 8 frames.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet on 19 through 22 so far. Gary Morgan on the left side had 249, the opening game on 21 and 22, and that's kind of been it. It's been
Today, you mean?
today so far.
Okay.
It's kind of been like so far 220 has been a 220 is a good game right now on our featured pairs from what we've seen. Don Blatchford starting with 6 in a row on 45 and 46.
Steve Smith flags a single pin in the second and then splits in the 7th over on 17 and 18. He's caught 1 strike in 5 frames.
And in chatting with him yesterday, he said he kind of had a plan in place for the fresh based off of the practice session on Monday, but felt he was prepared, had a few different balls in mind in case, after the pairing gets laid down a few times, things kind of start to play maybe a touch different throughout the course of competition. But yeah, having some struggles so far today. Nothing too crazy.
Maybe. Nope.
But he's also built up enough of pinfall total that at the moment really not in any type of jeopardy to miss the top 64.
So obviously as a competitor, you want to get as many pins as you possibly can. But do you think, and it may be too early for them to start thinking this way with it only being day 2 of 3, but do you think that at some point, as it looks like Kevin Croucher 6 count in the 8th, he disrupts that string. Do you think at some point the players that are at the top maybe going into day 3, I don't want to say sacrifice pins, but are more apt to try some stuff, or do you because they know they're solidly in the cut, and with 64 players, seeding 1 to 64 is a big deal, but if you're kind of in that middle, whether you're the 10 bowling the 55 or even further in the middle, do you think they really care too much about seeding and they're willing to try some stuff, or do you want to go out there and get every single pin you possibly can?
I think it varies from event to event. As Keith Lesko makes it 8 for 8 over on 23 and 24, and in talking to Shannon O'Keefe before the Queens, she had other goals in mind because part of qualifying also played into the Pan American Games and earning a spot through that. Talking to Andrew Anderson before the Masters this year, he was going to use those 15 games, basically as warm-up. He really didn't have any expectations. He wanted to learn as much as he could about the Gold Coast and go through his, wasn't going to be afraid to try different equipment. Yeah, I feel at this particular level, I don't want to say 1 to 64 is super close, but you never know what your draw is going to be. There's been times where, 2 years ago in this event, Brian Voss was like the second to last player in.
Right.
And so your reward for finishing second overall was a player of Brian Voss's caliber, who is not in the field this week, if you were frantically searching him.
I was not. I was
okay.
I was looking to see if there was any
Pete Weber entered the day in 50th place, and he has struggled so far through the first 2 games. I'm not sure how he's doing here in Game 3. We can definitely check the live scoring as Keith Lesko will be stepping up. We got Don Blatchford as well with the front 8 on 45 and 46. So
I may wander on down that way.
So we may be having some little extra.
Let's see what Keith does here on 24. They're on some surface. Flat 10. All right, 46, Don Blatchford.
So Blatchford was at plus 10. So this is an opportunity to make up a whole bunch of pins for Don, one of our competitors also at the Super Senior Classic. Tough game here for Rob Rice. Is going to finish at 156. It's still plus 96 overall, but giving some pins back to the field. We're going to be quiet here in our featured pair for a while. We expected this game to go quick as Mike Austin. Gets that 5-pin to tumble out for 152. Oh, excuse me, he's got one more shot to go. That was for the double. Jerry Anderson having a nice game. He gives you 279. Started the game at plus 57, so that would be a big jump for Jerry, and open in frame number 1. Hasn't missed since. He's got the 10th frame left to go. Weber's having one of his better games so far today. He can still get into the 240s with the 8th, 9th, and 10th to go. Mike with the trip, 152. It's going to be it. He's going to have some work to do in his final few games to put himself in a run for the top 64. Tim can still get to 204 here. That would put him at plus 59. Jack's going to be at 200 even. So our tournament director, Damon Sirocco, stopped by for a quick second to give us the heads up that Blatchford did connect for number 9. So always making sure we're taken care of here. Appreciate that, Damon. Daniel already has made his way down there. Keith Lesko is going to be in the 260s now. Again, if you want to follow along in live scoring, Blatchford on 45 and 46. Nice to see some familiar faces in the chat today. Tony's back, along with Thomas Cook. main man Emil Williams Jr. as well, checking in. Emil will be back on Bull TV in just a couple of days, Friday, for the PWBA Tucson Open, which is taking place in Tucson, Arizona. That would be the 6th event of the tour season. So qualifying will be taking place on Friday, round of 32, round of 12, and then the stepladder finals on Saturday. So we'll have 8 channels total across the board between both events. As we'll be in match play by Friday here at the Senior Masters. Thursday will be the final day of qualifying. As we mentioned, we'll know our top 64 at that juncture of the event. And then all head-to-head competition, 3-game total pinfall to determine who advances. It is a true double elimination format. So a player has to lose twice to be eliminated once you get to the bracket. And that even plays in the stepladder finals, so the top overall seed would have to lose twice in order to not take home the title and $20,000 top prize. But since we have a break at the moment, we're going to just kind of hang out. We saw bowling going on our 15 through 18 station, as well as 23 through 26, so feel free to hop on over there for a second. So we wait for 19 through 22 to get underway for game number 4.
Well, I'm back from my trip down to the high end of the house, and unfortunately, Donald Blatchford, after tripping a very late 4-pin in the 9th, I mean late as in the 4 was coming forward as the sweep was just starting to come down, had the crowd on the edge of their seat on that trip 4. He steps up in the 10th, and I don't know if he made an adjustment or just made a bad shot, but the 10th shot was definitely left off his hand right through the middle. big 4, broke down the 6'10" into a 4'7", and at that point I stepped away to go watch a couple other guys. So I would like to safely assume he made the 4'7", but sometimes, these days it's not safe to assume even a simple spare conversion like that. But that end of the house, Carl Nichols had 257. Kevin Croucher, after the front 7, opened in the 8th and the 10th to shoot 230. But outside of Nichols, 250, and Blatchford on the front 9, there weren't many high scores down there. So, Aaron, when you talked about you didn't think that this pattern was going to be very nice to these guys throughout the day, after the big start yesterday, as far as that game on that end of the house is concerned, you were correct. The scores, and even from our viewing point here, the pairs in front of us, kind of the ones around us, there's not a lot of numbers.
And one of the things we have heard throughout the course of competition is that, one end of the house plays different from the other, which is a pretty common thing from center to center, not singling out Samstown with that, but, topography, all those things, location to certain aspects, all the good stuff. Obviously, we don't have any open doors to worry about here, but
yeah, you're right.
But those do come across over the course of many centers. It looks like we got a few folks ready for game number 4. We got a USBC Hall of Famer.
We do.
CDB, Carolyn Dorn-Ballard. We'll be kicking things off with our tournament leader, Blaine Wenninger.
What is what's the jump here? Do you know? Because Blaine was just on 27 and 28. Now he's on 22. Are they moving left and right, I guess?
Left and right, yes.
Okay.
We have the divergent skip going on for Senior Masters. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. One of the things that I've always liked, a guy named John McCarthy has run the Kentucky Open back home for probably 8 years now. And he's now, I think John got promoted to USBC Northeast Regional Director, I think is his title, something along those lines.
Something along those lines, yes.
Anyway, when he runs the Kentucky Open, the jumps we make is if you start on the left lane to start the block, you move left. The right lane moves right. So you're always crossing with different people. You're moving different ways. You've got different jumps, and it shakes it up. It's better than just the typical. All right, after one game you're going to jump 2 pair, then 3 pair, then 4 pair, or a lot of tournaments you just move 1 pair after each game. So I like it when they switch it up like this. It keeps the bowlers on their toes. They don't feel as comfortable just because it's different. It's odd moving to the left in a tournament because you're always used to moving 2 pair, 3 pair to the right, whatever the number may be. So I like that.
Also allows the opportunity to bowl with different people each and every game. So obviously you have your one buddy for the week,
right?
If you will, but get to cross with different folks. So obviously that's going to make the patterns change a little differently compared to staying with the same folks, kind of getting familiar with the moves and kind of what they do. It's always going to be a new person. And same thing, obviously you're not following the same folks every time. So it's going to be a little different from each and every pair.
Because if the moves are the same every game of each qualifying block and you're following the same people, either it can help you if you're following people who are breaking the lanes down the way that benefits you, or it can be a detriment, a hindrance to you if they're doing something that's causing you issues. Kind of like last week, we overheard, what day was it? I don't think it was match play. I think it was Casher's round when Ron Moore made the comment, I think Ty was here. I think it was match play. And he was able to tell that Ty Dawson had hit that pair before him because of something the lane did, and it obviously affected him in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You're not following something like that that's going to affect you over the course of 5 games in one day, or even 15 games or 18 games in an entire qualifying squad.
We're going to be kickstarting in game number 4 here, but folks, have you been tuning into Bowl TV and checking out some of the inside analysis on the latest happenings in the bowling world? If you haven't, be sure to check out and listen in to Bowl TV Central, where the Bowl TV crew recap and preview the biggest events in bowling. That, once again, is a podcast available with Emil Williams Jr., the most recent one from the Sonoma County Open on the PWBA, where Emil went to go play mini golf with our Queens champion, Dasha Kovalova. Do you think Emil is good at mini golf, Daniel?
Well, I've watched E swing a wiffle ball bat, and that was just that was brutal. So if his mini golf putt swing is anywhere near similar to his ability to hit a wiffle ball, I don't think he's good. He could be really bad.
All right.
I know he can shoot a basketball. I know he can throw a bowling ball. But as far as wiffle ball hitting and mini golf go, I'm going to vote no.
All right, folks. Well, there you go. Some super inside analysis there on Emil Williams Jr.'s limbs, I guess, and what they can do. They can shoot and they can roll.
They can't swing or putt.
True story at the house in Arlington, because we all stay at Canizaro's place.
Right?
He does have a green in the backyard.
Does he really?
He does. Apparently Emil was listening to this. I'm
Good.
I'm glad you were tuned in too. But fantastic.
There's a green in the green in the backyard.
Green in the backyard. So Emil and I actually went out one night, like a Friday night or something like that, because there's no golf equipment at the house. It was just at the house when Matt bought it. So,
Okay.
We actually went out and visited various pawn stores and such to try and find some used golf equipment and clubs. So we picked up a putter and a sand wedge, which I don't know why we would need a sand wedge, because it's not a very big backyard, and it seems like that's more dangerous.
I was going to ask.
But and one of our good friends also chiming in, Chad Newman. What's up, Chad? I have used the green before. I actually have a spot where I feel like if it's cleaned off and it's in a good shape, I feel like I can knock down like 70% from 6 feet out. I feel like that's kind of my range. It's still not a great percentage.
Dude, if you're 70% from 6 feet out, why are you sitting here? Go on tour.
Because it's how you get to that 6 feet.
Oh, okay, that's a good point.
But I feel like I got a spot to where if we're out there grilling, having a good time, I feel like I could win some bets that way. But we don't use it enough, and I'm not sharp enough in that. So I'm going to work on that though. That's going to be part of my my off season away from Bowl TV. When I'm back at the office, I'm going to
work on your short game.
I'm going to work on the short game a little bit more and be ready. But Emil's only used them a few times, so he's not really hasn't. I don't think he's putting in the reps yet, but now he's going to, just out of this conversation and showing off, showing us up.
Well, I don't know what lanes 19 and 20 are doing, because I've seen a couple guys over there, 210, 248, 810. And then I've seen a couple guys like the last shot. Doug Inglesby, the first shot, Aaron was talking about the Bowl TV promo, but he absolutely split the 8-9. And then the last shot on that on lane 20 was the same way. We saw Carolyn Doran-Ballard a bucket on her first frame over on 21 and 22, a 2-pin on the second shot. So we're, game 4 here, starting to see the back ends have absolutely tightened up since early on. But I think we're starting to see that effect where people they're trying to get in, they're trying to get into a comfort area, and they may be jumping in too soon on this fresh. They may have to wait until the next, they've already obviously hit the burn. So they may be trying to jump in too early, trying to force it. And their equipment's not strong enough, the surface isn't matching up, something. But just walking up and down the house when I was going down to watch Donald Blatchford's front nine, and this is kind of a trend that goes back to last week. I see we see strikes that are interrupted not by single pins, but they're interrupted by numbers with red circles and pins that are far away. As it looks like one of our competitors who was actually in the booth yesterday hands Aaron a note.
Dave Wazzo's not having as much fun as he was yesterday.
Expressing his displeasure. And it's very PG. It's nothing we can't say. Just a note that simply says, I, H, and the number 8, I hate the fresh. But it has the Ron Moore smiley face at the bottom that you had to add.
Yes, I had to add to make it a happy
happy.
message. Yeah, it looks like Dave has unfortunately gone the wrong way today. He was plus 91 to start competition, but we'll slow down a little bit here on the fresh 40-foot condition.
There's another 2.4810. And David left that on the first shot on that lane as well. Now the first attempt, he picked off the 2.410, left the 8. Blaine Winninger, last couple of shots on 21 and 22 have been right of where he wanted them to be. Light on the second frame and then completely misses the head pin in the third. As Waz on 20, wraps 10. It's not going to help him. That's not going to endear him to the fresh any more than he may already be. See what adjustment, if any, that our Hall of Famer Carolyn Doran Ballard over on 21 makes here. Back-to-back light hits to start off game 4. She was minus 92 coming into this game. Don't think that's going to get up the hill. And a little too far right. Steve Smith over on 23 catches a double to start this game and then a runaway Brooklyn 5-pin. And the Waz has taken that note he handed Aaron and he's adding to it after he converts the wrap 10. Another 2.45 conversion for Carolyn Doran Ballard. You know, we saw it last week, some of the right-handers on that, I think it was 39 feet, 25 and a half units out there. Some of them were trying to play right of 5. I think we will see a little higher rev rates across the field in this tournament than we did last week. But even last week on that medium-ish volume, bowlers could not get the ball to recover consistently from outside of 5. And now with these 31 units, that's an OB. And if you're someone who can get the ball back, it's a tease area because you're going to see, you know, on the fresh, when the back ends are clean, it's not going to look bad out there. But as soon as those back ends tighten up, and this is coming from somebody who's got years of playing the gutter, you know, I can't wait for the back ends to tighten up on a gutter pattern because in practice they're absolutely flying. Well, something like this that's not a gutter pattern, and these bowlers are trying to play out there, it's all good and well until the back end starts carrying down, the ball starts pushing down the lane, and the last thing you want to see if you're trying to play the gutter where Carolyn Doran Ballard's last shot was, which was outside of 5, the last thing you want to see is a ball push because then you're going to try and adjust it out, and then all of a sudden you're going through the face. And you try and ball up, and the ball burns off energy, or it never reads, or it J-hooks off the spot, and it's an absolute mess trying to play out there if that's not the intended area of the lane.
So you're saying they can really get handcuffed if they're find themselves in that situation.
If you're trying to force the gutter, and I'm not saying that anybody right now is, but I have seen some players throw multiple shots out there trying to find something. And you know, I understand if you're lost, you're trying to find something, but this is a very intelligent field. You know, this is a field of bowlers who have been doing this at a very high level for a very long time. and they should be able to deduce pretty quickly that, okay, outside of 5 is not the area to be. But if you're trying to force it out there and you're searching for something, you're only going to delay the inevitable, and that's that you're going to miscut if you keep doing that. So it's not the area to play, but it's also not my place to tell anyone in this field what to do. Because as I said, they've been doing it for a long time.
There, Carolyn goes a little more up the hill, and just as you said, finds herself going through the nose. Looking at a split here in frame number 4. Kent Hansen started off with 3 in a row, and
Hook.
didn't hook enough.
Did not hook enough.
I couldn't see. My vantage point was blocked by Doug, so I was attempting to look around. See Blaine. Oh,
Right there, right up. That's good. That's 6, 7, 8 area.
Blaine is no longer the leader here at the 2019 USBC Senior Masters. John Congro of Las Vegas, 764 out of the gates.
Woo.
Get you some, John. Now at plus 276, 5 pins ahead of Blaine at plus 271. Gary Morgan plus 267. Ryan Schaefer having a nice day as well, plus 221. Gerald Johnson, who had the awesome start yesterday, is now up into 5th place, plus 204. Ron Moore staying pretty consistent, plus 203. Steve Smith still looking to get going here, plus 198. Johnny Manzella, plus 197. Carl West, plus 193. So your top competitors here on B squad. On the fresh, Doug Kempt at plus 157. Ironically enough, tied with Doug Kent, who's also at plus 157, but Doug bowling the next block.
I thought for a second you were saying Johnny Manziel when you said Johnny Manzella. I said, well, football didn't work out for him. Maybe you can try bowling.
There we go. Pete
Ooh,
McCordick.
Pete McCordick. Saw him last week.
It's true. Made the stepladder finals of the
He did.
Super Senior Classic. Look at this guy throwing doubles now. He added an addendum to his message that said there were several other things that were fresh that he did not like, including fresh cut grass, which it depends if you've done the work to make the fresh cut grass, then I can understand that, but just the smell of it generally is appeasing. But
That big 278 game by Donald Blatchford. So my assumption was correct. He did convert that 4-7 and struck. It puts him at plus 105 on the day. He came in at minus 17. So he's plus 88 overall, currently 66th. Just outside that top 64 cut line. So no matter the scoring pace, 278 is going to help you.
that is the general rule of thumb with that, yes.
And if things kind of slow down from yesterday, the numbers like 260, 270 are going to go a lot longer way as Pete McCordick splits the 8-9.
Do you think there's a bit of advantage for the Super Seniors coming in, already having some time on the lanes here at Samstown for the Super Senior Classic? Even though different pattern, different cross, different everything with the event.
I think so. You know, we hit on that a little bit, talking about some of the guys towards the end of qualifying last week who were going to be bowling this event, that while they may have entered their last game way out of it, it would behoove them to try and bowl as well as possible, because you don't want to walk out of this building if you bowled last week on just an absolutely terrible note, knowing you're coming back in. You want to at least pop off a good game, get a good feel for the house, because you've got to be coming back. So I think that if you bowled in a center before, especially if you were just there not 3 days ago bowling, it does give you a slight mental advantage, because it's, if I'm going to a house I've never bowled in before, light swisher, no. Then I'll try and get there a day before, because every bowling center has its own, and this is going to sound weird, it has its own different set of acoustics and just a visual feel to it, whether the ceilings are low like they are here, whether it's a high ceiling like Executive Bowl in Louisville, for example. It's a house, a normal bowling center, not a place like the Plaza or a convention center or a stadium. It's a normal house that has a high ceiling. You want to get in there and get a feel for the place and get a feel for the acoustics just so you're familiarized with it. So I think there's some benefit to the guys that bowled last week, even though it's a different field and a different pattern and a different format. Yes, I think there is an advantage for all those reasons. That some of which have nothing to do with the other side of the foul line. It's everything on this side, and everything around you. But I think it helps.
And as we mentioned, we've seen some guys, and even some guys who struggled at the Super Senior Classic, John Dudek being one of those examples, who missed the Cashers round for his 12 games. Didn't have a particularly great event at the Super Senior, but was able to come back, averaged 240 out here on day one. Still sitting in great shape to make the top 64 to the first part of round number 2. Nice shot there from Doug Inglesby. His third strike. Waswell's going to be stepping up, looking for 4 in a row.
I believe he started striking after he wrote you that note.
I think so. So there's a lesson to be taught here, is that you should write notes before the block if you hate the fresh.
Uh-oh. Terry Messner over on 24. I thought that ball off his hand was going in the gutter. It held on, left the 1-2-4-8.
Tony Johnson with a 5-bagger on 49 and 50 to start off this game.
Oh no.
One of the things that Dave said he caught from the practice session on Monday was that he had to be very, very nice to it on the fresh at the bottom of the swing, which he said, typically is not his game. He would rather kind of load up on it and kind of give it a little bit at the bottom of the swing. So he knew that was going to be a challenge coming into today. But he also saw yesterday from kind of where they've ended up at on the burn and kind of those first few games with the double burn, thought I might be able to get some pins out in that block as well. So now trying to salvage his final 2 games here after.
Steve Smith over on 24.
It's not been his day.
He was minus 40 for the day after game 3, and he's more than likely, going to go minus this game. A 4 count in the 6th on a spare. You assume he gets count. That puts him at 98 in the 6th, which would mean a punch off the sheet for 218. And although he started with a double since that opening double, he hasn't shown any ability on this pair. Carolyn Doran-Ballard continues to try and play out around 4, 5, 6, and that ball motion looked better, but just the carry's not there.
A shot there by David Smith. He's connected on 3 of the last 4.
Steve Smith gets 4 the hard way on that 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10. Takes out the 3, 6, 7, 10. Had to think about that one for a second. Kent Hansen puts a strike on the back of that Swisher 8-penny left on the previous shot.
Blaine Weninger, the owner of a 300 game at the USBC Open Championships. Just currently ongoing just down the street here in Las Vegas at the South Point Bowling Plaza. Daniel's home away from home for the moment.
It's nice to get away every once in a while, though.
Torrey Torgerson having another nice game. Has liked the fresh today.
He had 270 earlier, didn't he?
Started with 278.
I thought.
Going to be in the 250s with a spare conversion over on 33 and 34. As McCordick bounces back after the split in frame number 6. The crumbler.
Tickle him down.
The crumbler.
Great shot there by Don Wood over on 22.
Tony Johnson still striking. He's got 7 up on live scoring. Potentially 8.
Up in the 8th.
Entered the game minus 39, so.
I think he missed. Woof.
Blaine throws it really good.
Yes, he does.
I didn't need to say that, but because you could watch it, but I just felt like saying it. It needed to be said.
His tournaments are very well run as well.
Well, there we go.
Only bowled one of them. It was a OBA out in Portland, Oregon, a doubles tournament with my buddy Ryan. And that was the tournament that my doubles partner, I think in the course of 6 games, he left the 3-6-10 10 times.
That's a lot of 3-6-10s.
That's a lot of 3-6-10s.
You should have told him to stop doing that.
I tried after the 3rd one. He's hard-headed. Another solid strike by Woolard.
Don's been having a pretty nice tournament as well so far.
Oh, TJ got the 8th one.
All right.
I might meander down that way.
All right.
We know live scoring can be a little delayed.
Slightly delayed, so Mr. Farish will make the walk. As we settle in here. To the back half of B squad's second round. Tony Johnson on 49 and 50. Starting this game with 8 consecutive strikes. This game was minus 39, so an opportunity to make a big jump. Not the way Dave hoped they would all fall when he originally threw that shot, but he will gladly take the end result. Let's see what John Congro is doing this game on live scoring. See if he's keeping pace with Blaine as they fight for the top spot in the standings. And Congro looking pretty strong this game. He can max out at 246 with the 9th and 10th frame to go. For Blaine, he is at 247 if he strikes out. So similar paths at the moment. Two players who have been setting the pace so far. Congro, as we've mentioned, from the Las Vegas area. One-inger from a little bit north and a little bit west in Oregon. Kent Hansen with the 3.6910 here to kick off the 10th. And perfectly converted, although he says, whew. Chance to get to 213. The strike on the fill. Doug unable to convert. He's going to finish with 185. Daniel has returned.
Ron Moore stole his hit.
Shame on Ron.
He's crossing with Ron, and Ron tripped a very late 4-pin in his respective 9th frame. And then TJ gets up in the 9th and leads a high flush 4-pin. Ron, though, that tripping that 4 on the back end of 5 in a row, can shoot punch out for 240. Michael Karaluk is on 290 max, stepping up into the 10th frame. Jerry Anderson, part of the amazing staff that runs the Holiday Doubles, which I talked about last week over in St. Clair Bowl, just across from St. Louis over in Illinois. He's on 279 max through 9 frames, down on 51 and 52. So a couple of respectable numbers down there.
I think Jerry's put together a number or two today already. I remember he was running the back 11 at one point. I don't know if he finished it off, but let's. Steve Anderson, Kevin Anderson. We have 3.
There he is.
There we go. 257.
And he's
last game.
Can max out 79 this game.
So that would put him right around, or just shy of plus 200 in the plus 190 range. It should be all right for business, as they say. CDB with just the 1 strike here, or excuse me, 2 strikes in game number 4. They'll bring out a different ball for her fill. Chance to get to 180. Blaine can get to 214.
It's funny. You say you can kind of tell how someone's bowling by the way they react to a score, because there are a couple bowlers, more than a couple bowlers in this field, who would have a chance at 214 and be pretty thrilled about it. And Blaine comes back after converting the 10 pin in the 10th with a chance to shoot 214, and just from his reaction, you can tell he's not happy about it. So sometimes you can tell where a bowler is at in the standings by how they react to a, mid-level game like that. I'll hook a lot. Or don't hook at all. It hooked a little.
That porridge was too cold. This porridge was too hot, and that one unfortunately was not the porridge you wanted to have right there.
It's still morning here on the West Coast. We can talk about porridge and breakfast foods.
Absolutely.
There are some people in this world who will talk breakfast food 24 hours a day, and I'm not one of those people. Bacon and eggs at 3 in the afternoon doesn't entice me.
You and I are from a much different mold then. But once again, That border from Kentucky to Indiana shows its ugly head.
Hey, that Ohio River's a strong demarcation line. 210.
Oh.
Ah,
Looked online, but not too much loss there. 211 for Smith to get to minus 51.
once again, unless Woolard chance at 2-4. I was going to say unless Woolard catches a couple strikes here, we would have 8 more, for lack of a better term, uninspiring games on our featured pairs. Nothing really above 213 except for Woolard, who has a chance to shoot 240 here. Put together a very nice 240 game.
Mm-hmm. It appears John Congro is going to more than likely extend his lead here over Blaine Wenninger. 213 in the books for Blaine. Congro can still get to 235 this game. Is Don unable to get number 10 on that late hit? Just one game left to go here for our competitors on B squad as Pete McCordick finishes up 201. He's at minus 136.
Oh, plus
Plus
64.
plus 64.
9 games.
Why am I getting? Oh, because I got a 2,000 up there. I'm glad Pete's at plus 64, not minus 136. That'll be after next game. We'll have the 10-game total. So technically, Blaine's already at plus 84. So
Going into the next game.
I will say that's where I enjoy seeing the plus minus versus the rolling scores. That I lose track of what game it is from time to time. Just like there. It was one of those things where when I started to say it, it didn't feel right. It felt like wrong and dirty. And it was.
Kind of like that 9-pin you showed me that Warren almost left on the front 9 yesterday.
That was rough. I feel like I need to post that somewhere, even if it's on a personal page. There's so many kind redeeming moments to that whole sequence of Warren Nelson going for the front 10. He threw a great shot and he got the
I've still got Salvemini's.
so accurate.
I might have to post that and make it public on Facebook. It was Joe Salvemini last week in the Super Senior over on lane 22. Of course, the lane where we've seen that 3-pin kick off that sideboard like there's a spring inside of that thing. And he went, Salvemini left-hander, went high flush. Through the face, but very, very close to high flush. And the 6-10 was standing, and the 3 shot in front of the 6, hit the sidewall, came back across in front of the 6-10 and went into the left flat gutter. Only problem was the 6-10 weren't the only 2 pins standing. He also left the 7 and the 8. And I think he was so flustered by the sequence of events that led to that 6, 7, 8, 10 standing. On the spare attempt, he put it right between the 6 and the 8 and missed all 4. And I saw him at the Open Championships. That was probably, I think, Friday. And I saw him at the OC on Sunday, bowling singles and doubles. And I walked down. I said, Joe, I wanted to make sure you knew this. You weren't the only one that saw that 6, 7, 8, 10 that you left. And I showed him the video, and he told me, and he just dropped his head, and he said, man, he goes, I vividly remember that. So it's hits like that when you've been bowling a long time. Now that hit may, erase from his memory in the next month. But at least on the short term, you're not going to forget something crazy like that. And 2 days later, he hadn't forgotten. Like on one of our 2 featured pairs, Stephen Davis, Weedmar Vargas, Ryan Schaefer, and I believe the 4th name is a blind. It's a withdrawal. Not sure who it is. They shot -3. Oh, that was Alan Sabin. I remember seeing his name at the bottom of the standings as a withdrawal. Shot 990 yesterday. I guess my guess would be possible injury or discomfort. Hope everything's So that would make the most sense. Hopefully there was no kind of emergency. I hate to see that. Saban was competing in the match play, round robin match play portion of the Super Senior last week. Did not make the cut to the group step ladder, but he put up a valiant effort all throughout those 6 games on Saturday afternoon. As Aaron's watching video of Warren Nelson's front 9 attempt, or 300 attempt from yesterday, that late 9-pin in the 10th.
I want to see if I can get it on the stream here. Just if we have a moment in between shots waiting for, I think we have the technology. So I think after these spare conversions, I'm going to try and play this this video of Warren Nelson's 9-pin, because it's just one of those things that it's worth seeing in this moment. So after Schaefer
converts
goes, we'll get Vargas's single pin. We got some competitors making their way here for 19 and 20. So before Stephen Davis's shot, we'll flip over here for a second.
Cocks your head to the side and goes, huh, okay.
So it'd be mean for us to continue to talk about it and not show you guys. So there we go. Technology. Yes. We figured it out all by the time Stephen Davis got ready. And delivers a powerful strike just like that.
A couple rough games for some guys over on 17 and 18. Some guys that entered this game plus.
Yeah, 17 and 18 not looking too fun in general today. I feel Steve Smith hit that pair. Pete Weber hit that pair.
Yes, when I first got here.
There's just been some pretty good pullers to hit that pair, and there have not been a lot of scores.
See, Michael Vasquez got to shoot 149, puts him at minus 30, so he was plus coming in. I'm not sure who was on top on lane 18. Shoots 151, now minus 20. So he was plus coming in.
Nice shot there by Mike Lucente. He's joined by Jeff Mann, Johnny Manzella, and Mike Calvin on 19 and 20. So we see Ryan Schaefer, Stephen Davis, and Widmar Vargas on 21 and 22. We have seen some nice 3-6, 9-10 conversions here in the past game or two.
Three, 6, 9, 10. I feel like saying what is said on every bowling telecast ever when someone leaves a 3, 6, 9, 10. You know that is the most difficult non-split conversion on the deck.
Yes, that has come up once or twice over the course of the years.
But then that begs the question, the washout is not considered a split because the head pin is involved. So I would like to see the conversion rate of the washout compared to the 3, 6, 9, 10.
What did you call your washout? You made a comment earlier about your washouts.
Yeah, when you execute the shot properly and the head pin wraps around the 10 pin, I did my job. The pins didn't do their job.
Pins didn't do their job.
Yep.
So is there a moment where the pins don't do their job in the 3, 6, 9, 10?
I don't think so. That's just, no. typically when you put the ball in a spot to convert the 3, 6, 9, 10, whether you hook at it or you throw straight at it, I'm one of those weird creatures that throw straight at it because I don't hook at my spares, just the way it's always been. But either way, whether you hook at it or throw straight at it, if you hit the 3, 6, 9, 10, the proper way to convert it, I'm going to say 99% of the time you make the spare. And that's not always the case with the washout. Or something like a 2, 4, 10. You can, more than likely, the head pin or the 2 pin is going to hit the 10, but sometimes it doesn't. And that just puts salt in the wound.
Salt. Getting salty with
Get
Daniel
left.
Farish.
Didn't get left. Michael Lucente. Michael A Squad is going to be on the double burn today, which is 8 o'clock, noon, and what time's the double burn? 4? Okay, 4 o'clock. So 4 o'clock local time, 7 o'clock Eastern time. 5 o'clock Mountain time, 6 o'clock Central time.
Good old Mountain Time.
I don't think I've ever met anybody from Mountain time. Or at least if I have, they haven't brought it up in conversation, which I feel like I would, because Mountain time is a very thin time zone. It's mostly land, not people
Did you know
and cows.
the Open Championships has been held in the Mountain Time Zone 5 times, I believe.
I bet Billings was one of them.
Billings was one of them.
That's about all I know. Denver, maybe?
I used to know all these off the top of my
See,
head.
now I want to look up where it's been and see if I can guess. Excuse me. Oh! Manzella just dumps it in the gutter on that 10-pin attempt. Jeff Mann up in the second frame after flagging a single pin the first shot.
I have to look it up for the last one.
Oh, I didn't realize that those two cities were in Mountain Time. How about that?
Let's see. I feel most of it was in more recent years as well. However, we go to the list. Matt would be disappointed that we were having this conversation right now because he would feel he would already have them down. But let's see.
96? Question mark?
There we go.
There
Yep.
you go.
That was one. You know what? The crazy thing was I thought about that one in my head. I said Utah. And then
So-
I
So
blanked.
what are the 5 OCs that have been in the Mountain Time Zone?
The 5 would be 2002, Billings, Montana. 2000 and 2008, so we get 2 out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. 1996, which is also a high-scoring event. Salt Lake City. And then most recently, in a not-so-high-scoring event, 2015, El Paso, Texas.
Yeah, no kidding. Billings, Montana holds the distinction of having the most 300s shot at it for an Open Championship, 64, I believe. Which that just seems like a lot.
That was probably a busy year for the media department. How many do we have this year? 9? Is that all
9
right?
so far, yes.
So imagine that times 6.
That's a lot of feature articles.
Back then, they used to write about 299s as well.
Yes, they did.
Actually, any 11 in a row. Nope. Schaefer gets the ball to kick up a little bit there.
Looks like we do have some score updates scrolling in front of us. I'm not seeing anything online, but your hardwired internet connection may be better than my wireless Fi.
Well, it does say 9 now. John Congro. Looks like he didn't have a great 10th frame there, but
No, he didn't.
plus 288. Blaine Wenninger plus 284. Gary Morgan plus 236. Ron Moore plus 213. Torrey Torgerson plus 212. Ryan Schaefer at plus 201. Gerald Johnson plus 194.
Yeah, Congress stepped up with a chance to shoot 235 and only went plus 12. So shot 212.
So it looks like it'll be a race between John and Blaine for the top spot here. For B Squad through 10 games. Great shot there by Schaefer.
Michael Calvin playing that extreme outside part of the lane, kind of on top of that 3-4-5 area. And the first shot on 20 looked really good. It was more direct off his hand, a little straighter, you know, up the boards. And then that shot right there, he just got it a little left. And I think took off and made a sharp move on the back end.
And we saw that earlier on this pair. John Dudak was basically a zone to the right of where Torre was at, trying to stay around that first arrow, and just any direction that wasn't the intended one was not going to be forgiving. You really had to be on top of it. Very clean, very crisp shot to really get a great reaction out there.
And you know, and that's all good and fine when the scoring pace is 2-0 and everyone has to make shots like that all across the lane in whatever their respective A game is. But when the scoring pace is what it is, and you feel like you have to make great shots and execute almost perfection to get a strike, that's a problem. There are very few players in this world who can put themselves in a situation like that and compete. But I don't think there's anyone who can put themselves in that situation and win. And that's not where you want to be.
Interesting note about two of our competitors here in 19 and 20, because the name just rung a bell, and then when I looked it up last year, right here at Sam's Town, Michael Calvin and Johnny Manzella tied for the final spot into the bracket.
Oh.
And they get to be paired together this year. Calvin won the roll-off to earn his time against the top qualifier, James Campbell.
And he won his first match against the #1 seed, James Campbell. Won his second match against Ben Hafes. Lost in the third round of the winner's bracket to Norm Duke, 705 to 677.
That Norm.
Won his, first round in the loser's bracket, second round in loser's bracket, third round in loser's bracket, and then lost to the eventual 2018 USBC Senior Masters champion, Chris Warren, in his third elimination bracket round, 747 to 670. So Michael Calvin making the most of that one-game roll-off for that cut spot.
You shouldn't feel too bad about losing to Chris Warren, because Chris Warren eliminated 13 people last year.
I'm guessing Chris, and I've got the bracket in front of me, he probably went into the elimination bracket pretty early on, didn't he?
Very first round.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That is...
And then
it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it. In a double elimination tournament, you never want to lose the first round, because that means you have a long couple of days in front of you.
Very, very true.
Especially in a 3-game total pinfall format like what this is. That is that's a ton of bowling.
Luckily for Chris, he averaged 243 in match play.
Woof.
Along with his 501 in his losing match in the first round. So
wow. Oh. Vargas trying to get the spinneroonie on the 6-pin, doesn't get it to fall.
There's a spinneroonie at 10:37 a.m.
You know what that reference is from?
No.
WCW, Booker T.
How about that?
Any wrestling fans out there will get that one. The Harlem Heat. Oh, the crumbler. Stephen Davis on lane 21 to catch the double. A couple strings to our left as these guys are wrapping up game 5. 2 guys on front 6 down. Oh, yeah, down on 15 and 16. 1 guy on front 6 is one. Oh no, wait, that's an open. Okay, nobody on front 6. Just kidding, everybody.
That blueberry latte is getting to you. It's making you see things. Coffee will do that after a while.
I'll tell you one thing I just saw is down on lanes 13 and 14, Blaine Winninger absolutely stuffs a 7-pin on a double. I saw that pretty clearly.
Ron Moore started this game with the front 6 before a 9 spare in frame number 7. Tony Johnson having another nice game, 5 out of 7 so far.
Ryan Schaefer on our featured pair came into this game plus 201. He's looking to put up a big number headed into a late breakfast / early lunch break.
It's called brunch.
You know, I knew there was a word for it. The brunch break.
I was ready for that. I too enjoy brunch.
As Aaron points out to me, some struggles by one of the all-time greats, Pete Weber. You said didn't have a great day yesterday. Had one big game and was kind of even for the other 4. And then today, as he comes into this game, plus 80, 83, and he starts out 7 spare, 8 split, converts it, 8 split gets 1, 8 split gets 1, 8 spare in the 5th. Down on 45 and 46. Crossing with another one of the all-time greats, Johnny Petraglia, who missed the missed the top 12 cut, the round robin match play cut in the Super Senior last week by less than 10 pins. I think Schaefer got that ball to the dry just a bit too soon. It was a high flush 9-pin. Takes his max score down from 256 to 235. If he would have been wearing anything other than a New York Yankees-inspired jersey, I think that ball would have probably struck.
Wow.
Shots fired.
Wow.
I did it.
Wow. Bringing the heat.
Look, I'm a Reds fan, so I'm salty against any organization that's had success over the last, 30 years.
Yeah, that's true. You guys really haven't been relevant since like the 70s.
We weren't bad in the 80s.
Maybe early 90s a little bit too.
Early 90s, caught a couple good years.
But your heyday was kind of back 70s.
Oh, the heyday was the 70s. Yeah, you were not wrong about that.
And both you and I were not born yet when that was happening.
Nope.
To be fair, I was alive for the only Chicago Bears Super Bowl, but I wasn't old enough to really comprehend anything about it. Or most normal functions at that matter as well. So. Oh, Steven. Catch yourself a break. Sneak his way into the 230s right here. That fortunate hit. I have to, just going through the live scoring, there isn't a, outside of Ron Moore's pair right now, which had those guys were striking a little bit. There's not a ton going on at the end of this block. Terry Metzner having a nice game. There's a lot of folks kind of struggling through this final game.
Carl West on front 5, couple lanes down as he steps up in the 6th.
Which I feel that's, if you're walking into a squad and you're kind of looking across the board and you're seeing, you know, especially coming in knowing you're going to hit this pattern without a re-oil, and you're seeing 170s, 180s, 190s, and you kind of saw the scoring pace yesterday. What are you thinking about that how could this have happened?
I don't think, I wouldn't even concern myself with it. Because in an individual sport like this, if you see the competitors before you struggling, I've got to believe that I'm going to be better than they are. You have to believe you're better than they are. And a lot of people that don't know players at this level personally, only see them on TV or only hear stories about them, and they think, oh man, that guy's, you know, cocky, arrogant, he's a jerk. But in competition, when the lights are on, you have to think that way. You have to think you're better than everybody else in the field. Because if you don't believe in yourself, none of your competitors are, and nobody back in the stands is cheering for you can help you out in the lanes. So if you come in and you see this block struggling, or you check scores as you're getting up this morning and eating breakfast and preparing to come in to bowl in an hour and 15 minutes, you have to pay it no mind. Because the minute that you see scores down, and you let it affect you, you're going to think, oh man, well the scoring pace is coming down, and if you scored well day one, you're going to think, oh well, I can go out and do what I did, you know, the day before and put up a big lead because these guys are struggling, and that's what you have to think. But there's also the reverse of that, and it's if you didn't bowl too well day one and you see the scoring pace down, you're going to think, okay, well I'm not in as much trouble as I thought. And the minute that you think that, all of a sudden that burn squad that you're on lights it up. And 2.5 games in, your mindset is, man, I just banged out 2-0, 2-0, I'm okay. Well, guess what? The guys that are ahead of you are averaging 220. And you just lost 40-plus pins because you thought scoring pace was coming down because of what the entire group before you did. So I don't know if you can pay it much attention at all. You've got to go in and know, okay, I'm better than every single player that bowled that morning block, and I'm going to outperform them, and their numbers are not going to affect me. That's the way you have to look at it. Goes back to what you said last week. You want to be on the offensive. You don't want to be on the defensive.
Offense it is. Excellent, Danny. I enjoyed that very much.
I'd like to think you brought me in for something other than my coffee addiction and my wide vocabulary at the wee hours of the morning.
Well, to go along with that, both of our good looks as well. So
that too.
From one of the nice ladies who was here watching the Super Senior Classic. So
we were her 2 pieces of eye candy.
Unfortunately, we haven't seen her since. So if she can certainly return and pay us some compliments as well. It's very nice of her. Ron Moore, 268 to get to 281.
Attaboy.
Over
Tony Johnson popping off another big game.
Keith Lesko also on that pair. Going to be at 183. Tony Johnson can get to 196 over. So 281 is actually puts him right in the mix for our scores leading heading into this game. Our current leaders were on opposite ends of the house. Let's see, John Congro is on a 2-0 pace right now. Where'd he go? Oh, we just reset. That's why. Which still has a max score of 243 out there. If he's able to throw the last 5. Whereas Blaine Wenninger all the way over on 11 and 12. Max out at 237. He's also on a 2-0 pace if he just marks out. Blaine's actually up for his 9th frame right now. And it looks like he may have gotten away with the trip 9. I would say yes. Yes, he did. With authority. Carl West sees his string of strikes end at 6 with a 7-pin in frame number 7. Terry Metzner continuing strong. He has a chance to shoot 279 over on 13 and 14. Looks like he got the first strike in the 10th already. Terry can add 90. That would put him at plus 130, which, based off of our scoring pace yesterday, is probably going to put him right around what the number may be. Lucente rings the 10 in the 9th frame. Looking for 3 in a row.
The trend we've seen of scores not being spectacular. I ventured down to the high end of the house just to peek at some of the numbers down there. A lot of pairs already finishing up towards the high end. The middle section here, kind of 25 through 40, still going strong, but everything on the other end of 40 pretty much wrapping up. I see a lot of high numbers down there, so the trend continues throughout the house as far as a majority of the field seems to be struggling later in this block.
Looks like Blaine Wenninger is going to be finishing up first to take over the clubhouse lead. Going to be in the 220s this game, so he's going to get north of 300 over. Just his final shot, so I believe Congro will have a chance, or it's going to be very close if he is able to strike out. Actually, it might be. Okay, Blaine's up right now, so if he picks this up, it'll be 226. Couldn't see it, but it heard it. Looked good. So 226 for Blaine. Pushes him to plus 310.
You said Ron Moore was at 281?
281.
Okay, Ron's right there.
And then let's see. John Congro can max out at 208. So he will only be, or most he can get to is plus 290. So it looks like Blaine Wenninger is going to be our leader here. His B squad is the first to 10 games. So there we go. Wenninger was close yesterday. finished round one in 8th place overall. Bowling on the burn and had an equally nice day on the fresh today.
What was Steve Smith after 4? Ooh,
He was
Minus
minus 53.
53 on the day.
With after 197 in the opener, a trio of 180 games. So Blaine 263, 218, 213, 213, 226. So one of those days where you didn't get. I guess one of those days not highlighted by the 240s and 250s, but found something consistent from pair to pair, which I think is equally important. Kind of knowing what is lying ahead for him, looking ahead to match play.
Well, what he was able to do this morning, yes, it was minus, and it wasn't great scoring, but whether it was him filling frames and staying clean on games, or it was him catching doubles on the back ends of splits, like you said, he was able to find that 180, 190 range, and he kept those 4 games from being in the 160s and 150s. However he did it, whether it was striking on opens or staying clean and making his spares, he was able to keep the damage from being too bad.
Well, I was actually talking about Blaine Weninger there, but
that's what I get for editing video as you're talking.
But at the same time, that it's an equally fair point for Steve Smith, though. And that was something he talked about too. He's bowled Masters, Senior Masters. This format enough, knows it's 2 separate events, and knows that he could basically afford this type of round, and not be in total disarray to have to find a way to score on the double burn. Obviously, it's going to be a little more work going the rest of the way, but as you said, 180s aren't 160s.
Yeah.
And those extra 20, 15 pins a game also play into it, even when you're going minus for the day.
But now that I'm on page with what you were saying, back to Blaine, you're right. He wasn't popping off 240s and 250s all over the place today, but find that consistent zone, 215, 220, just keep chugging out plus games every game, puts him in a really good spot. He was already in a great spot, obviously, coming into today. He didn't do anything to hurt himself, and with what it looks like the scoring pace of this squad was, I think he's still towards the top, and he's good going into tomorrow.
Yeah, Conroe was 976. Weninger was plus 107 heading into this game. Torrey Torgerson plus 133 heading into the final game. So there were some scores bigger than his, yes, but when you look at a block like that where you got a lot of 2 teams, 220s, that means you're in the right place. You're just give me that extra hit a game, and that's an extra 40 pins on top of it right there.
Yep.
So I would much rather have to tweak those to, how do I get that extra 10 pin out per game, whatever it may be, versus having to find a way to jump 20 or 30 pins to find yourself to be competitive or in the mix for the top 64. Vicente finishes at 203, Johnny Manzella 194, Michael Calvin can get to 191, and final shot here for Jeff Mann to get to 210.
Bunch of plus guys on this pair.
Jeff is going to be 139 over. Vicente's at plus 7. Manzella plus 178, trying to not make it nearly as interesting as last year for the roll-off. And for Calvin, he's going to be plus as well, even though he's given a few pins back. With a strike, he can get to 229 over. I'm going to go say hi to Blaine Weninger real quick and let him know we want to talk to him.
kind of eavesdropping on Jeff Mann talking to one of his fellow competitors, and they're talking about what they saw yesterday, having Jeff bowled on the burn, and the gentleman he's talking to hit the double burn, and both of them saying that they had a good look on what they bowled on yesterday, and that the double burn, he said, the heads didn't really go away. And even with a field as big as this is, 230 plus bowlers, these guys, we talked about it before, their experience, they know how to treat a pattern and not just completely disintegrate it. Now, part of that, as we spoke, goes into rev rate, but where you don't have the rev rate of some of the younger players, you do have a lot more surface on these bowling balls out there, at least to start. And even into, I got here midway through game 2, even into game 3, I still saw a lot of surface being thrown. So where you lose the rev rate, you gain some surface, which can chew up the lane as well. But these guys know how to maintain a pattern and how to keep it playable over the course of 15 games, whether that's the goal or whether it's just instinctual at this point. And I think that's kind of why we saw, this gentleman talking about the heads had not went away through the double burn. Now, that being said, I do remember last week when I spoke with Kevin Croucher when he blew up that B squad of the Super Senior and just went, I forget what his plus total was, but he led after day 1. And then I spoke with him. He struggled on the fresh the next day, and he told me, he said, I don't know what it was, he said, but the heads went away quicker on his morning block day 2 than they did on his burn block day 1. And maybe that goes into how the guys played the pattern to start, and maybe he was too far right. Maybe that's why the heads went away, because he was too far right or too far left or just didn't play them right. But as far as the track area, the mid lane, and the back ends, really that mid lane, that track area are concerned, these guys don't abuse it. They're nice to it, and it creates a higher scoring pace and higher scoring probability for the guys that are bowling games 6 through 10 and 11 through 15 on this pattern later in the day.
All right, Daniel, that's going to conclude our opening round of the day. C squad just about all in the books, or excuse me, B squad just about all in the books with their 10-game totals. C squad's going to be hitting the lanes next in approximately 1 hour. Got a hold of Blaine, so he's going to be heading our way shortly. So I believe this is our opportunity to sign off. So thank you again for joining us here in the booth. And you're going to be sticking around for one more round before your full-time job starts.
Heading back to the OC.
But for right now, we're going to take a quick break, folks. We do appreciate you joining us here on BullTV.com for the 2019 USBC Senior Masters. A shout out to our tournament host, Samstown, our tournament staff, all the volunteers. For Brant Houghton back in Arlington, Texas. For Daniel Farish, sitting right next to me, I'm Aaron Smith. We'll be back soon. C Squad Round 2 coming up next here on BullTV.com.